Succes i veterinær praksis, podcast nummer 156. Velkommen til, dyrlæge Søren Pejstrup her. Lad mig gætte. Du har på et eller andet tidspunkt følt, at du ikke havde timer nok. At der bare ikke var timer nok i dagen til at nå alt det, du skulle. Og det behøver ikke være, fordi du sådan har presset for meget ind. Det er bare de almindelige ting med arbejde, børn og familie og fritid og veninderne og den slags, som på en eller anden måde bare ikke kan være der på de 24 timer, der er. Vi har snakket om stress og tidsplanlægning og meget andet her i podcasten tidligere, og i dag der skal vi så snakke om et andet hjørne, der har noget med det her at gøre. Vi skal snakke om søvn, og det virker måske sådan lidt, hvad har det med sagen at gøre? Og hvis du i forvejen har for lidt tid, så kommer du om et øjeblik til at høre, at du skal også prioritere at sove noget mere, og så sådan, hvornår skal jeg få tid til det? Og det kan være, at du måske ligesom jeg har meget set på søvn som sådan et nødvendigt onde, der egentlig bare skulle kortes ned og gerne overstås lidt hurtigt, sådan at vi kan komme videre med alle de mange opgaver, jeg faktisk gerne vil nå. Sagen er, at når vi snakker om at være produktiv og effektiv, så handler det ikke om at nå mere lort på kortere tid, sådan at du kan få presset flere opgaver ind i en allerede for travle hverdag. Det handler om at gøre de ting, der er vigtige, og så gøre dem godt og med overskud. Og det er der, søvnen kommer ind. For netop det med at fokusere på at få en god nats søvn, helt banalt set, så bliver vi faktisk mere effektive til de ting, der faktisk betyder noget. Hvad det der så med en god nats søvn betyder, og hvordan vi ligesom får mere af den, det er så det, dagens interview handler om. Jeg har ringet til Canada for at snakke med en dyrlæge, som har viet en stor del af sit faglige liv til det her med, hvordan vi passer bedre på os selv i veterinær praksis. Det, der på engelsk hedder self-care, og en del af det er som sagt det her med søvn. Der er som altid links og noter over på hjemmesiden på SIVP.dk/156, og så over til interviewet med Marie. Hi Marie, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
So you came on into my radar when you launched your own podcast, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. And I saw also a piece you wrote about sleep. So this is pretty much what I want to talk to you about today. But before we do that, maybe people should get to know you a little bit. What is important that people know about you before we dive in?
Sure. Well, I am a veterinary emergency and critical care specialist, and I was raised by two veterinarians. So both of my parents are vets. They're both retired now. They met in vet school. So vet medicine was ingrained in me in a very young age. I got into vet school when I was young. I was 19 and always sort of envisioned that I would work at my mom's practice after I graduated. But fate took another turn and I ended up doing an internship followed by my residency in emergency and critical care. And then I was in academia for 5 years. I worked at the University of Guelph in the Ontario Vet College. Loved it. I loved teaching. And I love writing and research and everything else, which is, of course, why now, I share in a lot of those passions by having my podcast and, writing articles and blogs and so on. But it was an interesting journey. It was my own burnout, really, that caused me to leave my academic role and just basically start on my own adventure. So I started doing a lot of consulting work and locuming and continued the cycle of burnout. And it wasn't until I really, had a bit of a life shakeup that I turned things around. And it was really through my own personal journey of, finding the tools and skills to help me take care of myself, engage in self-care, stave off burnout, and, just developed a passion for personal health and well-being and professional well-being. And of course, my love of teaching just made me want to share this information with everyone else. So over the years, it's morphed into a blog and monthly wellness videos that, of course, are also incorporated into my monthly podcast. So that brings me to where I am today. And yes, the focus is mostly well-being. I do still practice emergency and critical care, but it's a pretty small part of what I do. Most of my focus is on supporting other veterinary professionals in the work that they do.
Yeah. And I really like talking to people like you who have an academic background, because maybe that's a bit arrogant on my part anyways, but I like that there's some substance behind what we talk about. And it's not just something that we feel, but there's actually studies done.
I think we're quite passionate about the research, and we have definitely a drive to, know the evidence behind what we're doing. And it's definitely a function of what I teach. Is everything I share is evidence-based. I do share my own personal experience and my anecdotes, but everything I recommend is backed by research, which is great. And the good news is there's more and more research now in the well-being field that we do have information to really back a lot of what, people have been recommending for a while.
Yeah. And we should talk about sleep. And this is, I think, an important topic, even though it might be something that we just all do and maybe feel that we have to do, or at least I felt it like that. When I was a student, I was trying to read all these productivity hacks, and I'm trying to optimize everything in my life. And I was trying to squeeze as much work and reading and everything else into as little time as possible. And I was trying to optimize how little I could actually sleep, so I had more time to doing the rest of the things I wanted to do. And I was just at that time, I was just mid-20s and start 30s, and I'm not anymore. So I really I really feel now that if I don't get my sleep, I don't get any productive work done. And I pretty much had to realize that sleep is not a necessary evil that I don't really have time for. It's really much more than that. So and that is actually what came through in your writing as well, and what you talk about in your podcast. It's not something that we have to do, but it's not just sleeping more. It's actually taking sleep as a very important part of being human, right? Or am I just completely off here?
No, I love your story, and that helps to paint a good picture of you in your earlier days as a student, and oh my goodness, how we took sleep for granted. I can remember my first physiology exam and how unprepared I was. And I ended up, I'm not a big caffeine drinker. I drink tea. I don't drink coffee. I don't drink a lot of pop. And I didn't at the time when I was a student either. And I went to the store and I bought 2 bottles of Jolt Cola. And I don't even know if they make Jolt Cola anymore, but it was basically like this super caffeinated Coca-Cola beverage. And I drank 2 of them and I stayed up all night, and I was so sick and so exhausted, and I crashed so hard the next day. I bombed the exam, of course. So lesson learned, but yeah, sleep is one of those things that the experts often refer to as one of our foundational habits, meaning if you're not getting enough sleep or you're not getting good quality sleep, then that's going to impact all of your other healthy habits during the day. Because obviously when you're tired, it's harder to make decisions. It's harder to exert willpower. You're not going to choose, to go for a walk after work. You're not going to choose to get up early and exercise in the morning. You might not even have the energy to make a healthy meal for the day or whatever it might be. So if you're not sleeping, then everything else kind of falls apart. So I absolutely know what you're saying about it being a necessary and something that we really need to prioritize.
But you talk about two things here. You talk about the quality of sleep and also sleeping more. So, and that's two different things, right? It's not just me wanting to sleep just and get by with 6 hours of sleep. It's not that I just need to sleep 9 hours and then suddenly all my problems disappear, or is it?
Yeah. So, the amount of sleep that a person needs is very individual. So if you imagine a bell curve, some people are very lucky that they can get by and feel rested and be sufficiently, cared for with just 6 hours of sleep. There's actually a genetic mutation that allows some people to get by on 4 hours of sleep. And I've met one of those people. There was a woman who was in one of my retreats, and we were talking about sleep, obviously, during the retreat. And she raised her hand and she was like, I'm one of those people. She said, when she was young, when she was a kid, her parents were like, oh my gosh, like you are not getting enough sleep. And they took her to a sleep doctor and they found that everything was fine and she was sleeping fine. It was just short duration and she felt rested. And so they finally tested her for the gene mutation. And she is one of the lucky people in the world that literally only needs 4 hours of sleep. But I digress. Most of us are going to fall on the height of that bell curve, which is between the 7 to 9 hour per day mark. So when I say per day, it's because for those individuals who nap, that nap or falling asleep in front of the TV or, whatever it might be, that does that gets counted towards your cumulative sleep for the day or your total sleep for the day. Some people need more than that. Some people really, to feel rested, they're going to need 10 or more hours of sleep. So it's really important that you sort out what it is that you need. I know for me, I'm a solid 7.5 to 8 hours minimum for me. 8 hours is great. 7.5, I can get by. If I'm getting 7 hours or less for more nights in 3 or more nights in a row, then I start to get, I don't feel so good. And as somebody who lives with anxiety and depression, I really start to feel my mental health go off the rails. And so I forgot to mention when I was telling more about myself too, that I am a mom to a 16-month-old baby. I'm a single mom by choice. So I had a baby on my own last summer, June 2020, of course, when COVID was just, really taking off. It was terrifying as a new mom. But it was really, having such disrupted sleep and such sleep deprivation, it really took a toll on my mental health. So, we can talk so much more about all of the benefits of sleep and where that comes from. But definitely the duration is very important. And then the quality as well. So often people are, waking up so many times in the night and they're waking up and their mind is racing and they can't fall back asleep. And, we want to be very cognizant of that because there are a lot of medical reasons why you can have sleep disruption where you keep waking up. There can be hormonal imbalances, vitamin imbalances. It can be sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome. What I tell people is if you have had difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep for more than 3 nights a week for more than 3 months in a row, then you definitely want to first speak to a physician to just really make sure, get your blood work checked, check all, your thyroid, get everything, make sure that everything is okay. Because otherwise, everything we talk about in this episode with sleep hygiene and everything else, it'll help, but it's not going to fix those underlying medical problems. So you want to make sure that you've addressed those as well.
Yeah. And we know that very well from some of our patients, right? So if you're producing too much corticosteroids, you're definitely going to have trouble sleeping. And if you need them to take those for any kind of medical reason, you of course have the same issues.
Yeah. Medications can be a huge sleep disruptor for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I was used to back in the days where I was trying to cram a lot of work in, I was used to drink like at least a whole pot of coffee each day, or maybe 1.5.
And of course, that interrupts the sleep a little bit. But I'm guessing caffeine is one of the things we're going to talk about as well.
Yeah, let's talk about caffeine. So it's you're not alone. Obviously, the vast majority of people take in caffeine in some form or another. It's a great stimulant. It's probably one of the healthiest stimulants we have. I mean, there's a lot of health benefits to drinking coffee. I think when it comes to sleep, we just want to be mindful of when we're taking it in. So caffeine has a very long half-life, meaning it stays in the body for a very long time. So for most people, it's about 5 or 6 hours. For some people, it's even longer. So there are people that if they have coffee after noon, they cannot fall asleep at 10 o'clock at night. For most people, you want to have it. Let's say you want to be in bed by 10 o'clock. You want to probably not take in coffee after 4 p.m. So that's one of the big things about coffee, is just being mindful of when you're taking it in. If you do want to have, a warm beverage, or it's really the taste of coffee that's comforting, later in the day, you want to switch to decaf, or you want to drink, a caffeine-free tea, an herbal tea, something that's going to give you that same warm beverage comfort, but that isn't going to be packed with caffeine to keep you up. One of the other things that there's some misconceptions about as well is alcohol. So we often, enjoy having a glass of wine or a beer or something like that at the end of the day, or for some people, even as a nightcap, before they go to bed. And it's really interesting because alcohol is a bit of a depressant, or has some depressant properties. And so a lot of people, it will help them to fall asleep, or it will help to relax them so that they can fall asleep. What's really interesting about alcohol is that it actually prevents the brain from going into the very deep stages of sleep. So yes, it relaxes the body to some degree, but if you think about the brain waves and the different stages of sleep, or the sleep cycles that we go from a really light sleep to a deeper sleep to our very deepest sleep. And then our brain waves come up into REM sleep, that rapid eye movement, which is where we're really processing our emotions and we're replaying tasks that we did for the day. And that is the most beneficial part of our sleep in terms of our mental health regulation and our, emotional regulation and everything else. When we drink alcohol, we are not getting into the deep stages of sleep, nor are we getting into REM. So we stay in that really light stage of sleep. And I should say it's not just when we drink alcohol, it's when our alcohol is in the system. So if you go to bed with alcohol in the system, you're going to stay in that very light stage of sleep, which is why a lot of people, if they've had several beers before they go to bed, they find they're waking up a lot. They're waking up to go to the bathroom, they're tossing and turning, they're up, they're down. And that's just because you're staying in that really light stage of sleep where you're easily roused and often disturbed. And you're going to wake up the next day not feeling rested. You're going to feel, if you do live with mental illness, you may feel very mentally dysregulated or emotionally dysregulated. That was a big trigger for my anxiety is after a night of drinking, I would wake up and I would just feel so anxious and like just really on edge. And again, it's because I wasn't going into that stage of sleep that was really allowing me to kind of process everything that happened during the day. So all that to say, I'm not saying you can't ever drink, but if you do have an alcoholic beverage, have it earlier in the evening. So have it with dinner and then, say that's it. We're going to, stay away from alcohol for the rest of the night because it takes a couple of hours for it to leave the system.
Yes. So you could actually be asleep for like these 7 to 9 hours, but not really feel rested anyways.
Exactly.
If you have too much caffeine or maybe too much alcohol in the system.
Yeah, it goes back to that quality over quantity. And it's really interesting because, when we think about those sleep stages or the sleep cycles, we go from light sleep to deep sleep into REM, and then we go back into deep sleep and back into REM, and it kind of goes up and down. And each cycle takes about 1.5 to 2 hours to complete. And what's really interesting, as the longer we sleep in the night, so the closer we get to that 7 to 9 hour mark, the more rapid we're going into those REM stages. So the more REM stages we have later in the night. And that's why a lot of people, especially people who live with mental illness, they need that longer duration of sleep to really feel like they're keeping their mental health in check. So even if, for example, you were sleeping 4 hours at night and then you were napping for 4 hours during the day, that's not going to be a good sleep regimen for a person who lives with depression or anxiety, because that is not going to allow you to have sufficient time in REM that you're actually processing those emotions. So I'm all about napping, not for me, but for others who it works for. And there's a lot of research to show that napping for shift workers or, most individuals can be really, really beneficial. And certainly in some cultures, in some societies, naps are just a standard part of their daily life. But if you're a person where your mental health is something that you struggle with, then you do want to stay away from naps, and you really want to try and have that sleep in a cumulative fashion.
And do you know why is that? Why is that the better thing to do?
Well, again, it just goes back to if you are breaking up your sleep and you're only sleeping for shorter durations, then you're not having enough time in those REM cycles, because the REM, those cycles, the number of times you go into REM increases in frequency the longer you're sleeping. Think about it. So during REM, our rapid eye movement sleep, our brain waves it's like we're awake. If you had probes on your brain that were measuring your brain activity, it would be telling the computer that you're awake because of how rapid your brain waves are, but your body is completely asleep and you are not conscious or aware. So that's where we have dreams. That's where we replay everything we did for the day. That's where we consolidate our memories. That's where we process our emotions. So it's fascinating. So if you think about the nights, I don't know if you dream, if you're a person who dreams or remembers your dreams.
Yeah, I do. And it's always a big mess of big, I don't know what.
Right?
Yeah.
But probably the nights where you sleep, where you have a shorter sleep, you feel like, oh, I didn't dream last night. But if it's the nights where you're in bed for a long time, or you have a really long sleep, especially if you wake up out of a REM cycle, then you're like, oh my goodness, and you're really going to remember the dream you had. It's funny. My dad, whenever I go visit my parents, it's always my dad and I that are up early while everybody else is still sleeping. And, I'll often be like, Dad, I had the craziest dream, because I have a lot. I prioritize sleep. So I very often will get a lot of REM and I'll have a lot of dreams. And my dad would always say to me, oh, that's the sign that I know I've been in bed too long, is when I start having dreams. And it's true. It's because in order to have those dreams, you have to be going into REM, and that's going to happen the later on you are in your sleep cycle. So to go back to your question, again, it's very good for your mental health to have time to process your emotions and to regulate those things. I mean, those dreams, that's our subconscious mind sorting through different things. That's important for our brains, because we're taking in so much information and things during the day. We can't possibly have time to process it all. So a lot of that processing happens at night. And honestly, it's fascinating, the health benefits of sleep. And that's definitely one of them.
Yeah. So when you're napping, you don't get as many. That was many of those. No.
No, when you nap, so it would probably take you an hour to get into a REM cycle. So towards the end of the hour. So most people, when they nap, they're maybe napping for, if it's a power nap, 15 or 20 minutes is typically the sweet spot. That's because when you fall asleep, you get into a semi-deep level of sleep, but you don't go so deep that you have that sleep inertia or that grogginess when you wake up like you do in the morning. But you're not going into REM. And so unless you had a very long nap, but again, then you're only maybe getting one cycle, not multiple cycles, which is what we would want during a full 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And then circling back to what we started on is that now you have taken the evening coffee from me and then the nightcap as well. So we have to talk about the screen time as well. For now, I probably can't be on Facebook as well, right?
Oh, when you put it that way, I sound like such a downer person over here.
No, we are we're actually trying to improve people's lives here, right?
I know. I mean,
we're doing it for their own benefit.
Yes, we're doing it for their own benefit. And like I said, take away the caffeinated coffee and do decaf, or take away the tea and do herbal. Have the beer, but have it earlier. When it comes to screen time, it's kind of the same thing. You want to do your screen time earlier in the evening. So screens are not good for us for a number of reasons. And when it comes to sleep, the two big reasons are, number one, stimulation. So you might be watching the news and you might get agitated about something, or you might be watching something on TV that disturbs you or gets your thoughts going. You might pick up your phone and read a text message or a work email that gets you fired up. So the stimulation is the one difficulty. The second drawback is that light that comes out of the screen, if you're not wearing, blue light filtering glasses, or you don't have a filter blocking that light from emitting from your screen, that is actually suppressing your melatonin secretion. So that's like sunshine shining into your eyes. That's basically telling your brain it's not nighttime. It's not time to wind down. And so melatonin is our natural sleep hormone. We need, as the lights go down, as the sun sets, our melatonin comes up and it naturally triggers us to want to go to sleep. And now what we're doing with screens, other than getting ourselves all revved up, scrolling through Facebook before we go to bed, it's also really blocking our melatonin secretion. So I'm a big fan of filters. So either I have a blue light filter in my glasses. I have different glasses that I use to watch TV. Blue light filter glasses, they're, $30, $40, $50. They're not very much money. Definitely worth an investment. And any of our screens now, for the most part, other than TVs, although maybe there's some high-tech TVs out there that do this as well, but certainly laptops, tablets, you name it, they will have a function in them that automatically removes that blue light from the emissions so that it looks kind of like more of an orangey red hue. And there's still obviously some, stimulation there, but it's going to be much less stimulating than that, bright blue white light that will be coming out of the screen. So what we typically say then is, no caffeine 6 hours before bed, no alcohol 2 hours before bed, and ideally no screens 1 hour before bed. So I make a point of turning off the TV, dimming the lights. You can turn on some music, you can listen to a podcast, maybe do a meditation, read a book, journal, do something that does not involve electronic activity. And please, if you can, really consider leaving your phone outside of the bedroom. I think that's one of the best things that we can all do, so that we're not, it's if it's on your bedside table, you're just like, oh, it's just right there. I could just check it quickly and see what I missed. And it's not going to help you with your sleep.
Yeah, well, and even if you check it during the night, if you wake up and can't fall asleep and you're checking Facebook at night, right? That will be even worse, right?
Awful.
But as we record this, we just have come off a whistleblower from Facebook leaking documents that they, in her words, are more likely to promote posts that actually are diversifying or is polarizing, right?
Yes.
And create conflict, because that will get people to use more time on the specific platform, right?
They're more engaging.
So And we will be more engaged, and we of course also here in Denmark have talks about how the tone of voice is very harsh on social media, and it really is. But maybe some of the platforms are actually creating these things. So even though you turn the lights down on your screen, you might be agitated just from the way these platforms actually work.
Absolutely. I mean, Søren, we could have a whole episode on social media and the mental health ramifications of it. But, in a nutshell, there is a lot of research coming out, mostly in adolescents, but also in, college age students and older, that really demonstrates that, especially again, if you're a person who, lives with anxiety or lives with other mental health problem, social media can definitely have detrimental effects. There can be very, it can be very invoking of anxiety for a number of reasons. Number one, the news that you read, especially if it's false news or inflated or meant to incite divisiveness, as you said. But there's also a way in which people use social media that can be detrimental. So if you wake up in the middle of the night, for example, and you're just passively using social media, you're just scrolling through and liking and looking, and subconsciously your brain is just comparing you to everything that you're seeing. And research will show that passive use of social media is very detrimental to our well-being. And I don't, recommend getting up in the middle of the night and actively using social media, but other times of the day when you are using social media, you do want to be active. And what I mean by that is you want to be purposeful. You're going onto social media to share something meaningful, to connect with a friend, to search for an event, to make a donation, to comment on someone and show your support. And you're really limiting the time that you spend on there. So again, you're going on, it's for a purpose. I use social media for my business, but it's very purposeful. If I find myself in a haze of scrolling and looking, it's like, okay, the moment I notice it, snap out of it and move on, because it's not going to be good for my sleep nor my mental health.
I had to completely delete the Facebook app from my phone because I couldn't control the dopamine rush I was getting. And I just had to realize that I wasn't grown up enough to handle Facebook on my phone. So I had to delete it so it's not even there, right? So and I use Facebook very sparingly, and I use it for work and for my website as well. And when I go on there, I want to do something, and then 10 minutes go past, and I'm down some kitten video rabbit hole, and I forget completely why I was going there. So these platforms are so incredibly good at
they're doing their job.
And I'm a sucker for dopamine, and I can't control it. So I'm very much I love it. A sucker for dopamine.
We're all a sucker for dopamine because we're human. But you're right. It's a dopamine hit. It's an addiction. And I don't think there's a person on the planet, except maybe people with flip phones who don't have an addiction. And the very best way that you can get over that is to do just what you did, which is to remove the app from your phone. And I know a lot of friends of mine who have done that, or have, gotten rid of their accounts altogether. For me, having lived in so many different places in my life and having family, in Holland, and just, it's such a wonderful way for me to stay connected with people, that I do want to hang on to it, but I am very intentional and very boundaried around my use of it. And I have a very firm rule, like when my electronics go off, not only does the TV go off, but even before that, my phone goes into do not disturb mode. So after 9:00 at night, if you send me a message or, whatever, I'm not going to get a notification for it. And so I'm not going to check it, because for me, it was just too much. At the end of the night, I would get a message and then I would be thinking about it. And there's just we're taking in so much during the day. And for me, the evening really needs to be about winding down. And that's a real misconception that we have as human beings, is we really think that we can just go about our day running around and on our phone and constant stimulation, and then just like go to bed and be asleep the minute our head hits the pillow. And it just doesn't work that way. You need to wind down. You need that quietness, that safety, that low stimulation. And so I advocate for everyone, even aside from electronics, to really half an hour before you get into bed, to have some sort of routine, just like your children, if you have kids, just like they have a routine before bedtime. Do something for yourself every single day that triggers your mind and body. Now it's time for sleep. So I like to have a glass of herbal tea. I like to read a book. I like to listen to a meditation. Just anything that is not going to involve screen time, stimulation, high activity or noise or anything like that. And then my body knows the minute I turn off the light and lay down in bed, it's a rare night that I'm up, having difficulty falling asleep, because my body has already gone through all of the little triggers and rituals that are telling it that it's time to go to bed.
Yeah. The point I was going for before that, and that's of course my agenda, but we sometimes, or maybe I should say, I sometimes feel that I have to do something. I have to. I've earned sitting in the sofa with my phone because it's been a busy day and the kids have been upset and everything is just bonkers. And I treat myself to some screen time, right? So taking that away can feel like bad somehow. Yeah. And what my point is that it's also the dopamine and the built-in habits that we have that make you feel that you have to do these things, and maybe you don't, or maybe I don't.
Well, I think that that's fair. And I think, like I said, you're human. And I think a lot of us are in that same experience. And I can tell you, for me, the moment my daughter is in bed, then it's like, okay, I'm finishing up my work. I'm eating my dinner. I'm still kind of scrambling to get my stuff done. And then, 8 o'clock-ish at night, when I finally sit down on the couch, I do want to just watch TV, and I want to, check my phone and reconnect with my friends and do things for me. And I do that. I just limit it. So it just doesn't carry on into the wee hours of the night. I'm not on Netflix, watching episode after episode after episode. And again, I'm not saying those things are wrong. I'm saying they're just not conducive to a good night's sleep. And so, if for the people who are listening, if you've been doing these things and you're sleeping just fine and you're feeling rested and life is good, then great. I'm not suggesting that you upheaval your whole life just to do what we're saying. But if you are noticing that you're really having trouble sleeping, or you're feeling super exhausted the next day, so much so that the only thing you have energy for is to sit on the couch and scroll through your phone or watch TV, then maybe we do need to consider making a change and prioritizing sleep, and just do it as a experiment. I'm going to do this for a week. I'm going to really prioritize getting at least 8 hours. I'm going to set an alarm at night so that I know when it's time to turn off the TV and turn off my phone. And I'm going to come up with a sleep routine, I should say a bedtime routine that works for me. I'm going to leave my phone outside of the bedroom and just see how you feel. And if you feel great, if you have more energy, if you feel more rested, if you feel less irritated during the day, if you feel rejuvenated, like you could actually go and do some exercise, then great. Maybe that's something that you want to continue. That's what I suggest to people.
Yeah, and you use these habits to your advantage instead. So you have an evening routine, right? And I have that with my kids as well. Not that it works every time, anyways, but but I do, and I have sort of my own routine.
Yeah.
I can't meditate at night because I fall asleep, and that is sort of the point, right? But but still, I don't get meditate. I don't get it too much from the meditation, and I fall asleep in the chair, and that's not either way. It's not good. So I have to do that in the morning. But something is a routine is a good thing.
Absolutely. It's absolutely a good thing. It just triggers our brain, into anticipating things without really having to think about them. And I can't stress it enough. I mean, for me, it's been game changing, and I notice when I'm not getting enough sleep, and I notice how much better I feel when I am getting enough sleep. And like you said, it just sets us up for success in so many other parts of our life, because then I feel more energy to do other health promoting activities, or I am so much more productive and focused with my work. And I think we have to get away from, the mindset that, you had when you were a student, and certainly that I had throughout a lot of my adult life. Even up when I was in academia, I would stay up late, I would work late because I knew I had trouble sleeping. So I thought, well, I'm not sleeping anyway, so I may as well just be up late and getting work done. That's the opposite of what we want to be doing. We want to really make this a priority so that we can then see the benefits in the rest of our life. And Arianna Huffington wrote a book a few years ago about sleep. And she said that she was that go, and, getting as little sleep as possible. And it was like this badge of honor, like, well, how much sleep did you get last night? Well, I only got 2 hours and I still showed up today, and then she finally passed out in her office out of exhaustion and was like, oh my goodness, this is not sustainable, made a change. And now she's like, I am so much more productive and successful because I make sleep a priority. And I think if you talk to a lot of the very successful people in the world, it's the same thing. They're very regimented. They have a routine. There are their non-negotiables, and sleep for many of those individuals is a non-negotiable activity. Doesn't matter how good the series is you're watching on Netflix. You got to shut it off and you got to go to bed.
But they're really good at hooking us in.
Oh yeah.
But and I at some point had to realize that being productive is not getting more shit done in a little as possible time. It's getting fewer things done better.
I couldn't agree more. I love that.
So we have taken something away, the screens and the alcohol, and we added a routine. What else? How about eating or supplements? Should I take vitamins, or should I drink 2 gallons of water? Or what else can we do?
I would be a little bit careful with the large gallons of water before you go to bed, because of course we don't want that full bladder waking us up. You know what? There is a lot of research actually to show that different supplements can be very beneficial. I mean, I'll go back to what I said before about checking in with your doctor, because things like iron deficiency, B vitamin deficiency, magnesium deficiency, those can definitely lead to sleep disruption or restless leg syndrome. So you want to make sure that those aren't an issue. And then supplementing a lot of those can help. Definitely, addressing those, but there's a lot of sleep aids that incorporate magnesium into them, which is a muscle relaxant. It's also very good for, anxiety for a lot of people. Passion flower herbs, so either as a tea or as an herbal tincture, is a very, very beneficial sleep enhancer as well. There's lots of different teas that are on the market that can help. Again, just don't drink too large of glasses or too many glasses and then have to be up. But those can definitely help. Most people, when they think of sleep aids, non-medicinal sleep aids, they think of melatonin, and they think of tryptophan. And they're two different sleep aids and they work in different ways. Melatonin is really great when I'm talking about adults, not children. It's really great for people who work shifts or people who are traveling to different time zones. It's really not meant to be something that's used chronically. But if you are, getting into a different time zone, or you're moving from day shifts to night shifts and suddenly you're having to sleep at a different time period, then taking melatonin, usually no more than 1 or 2 milligrams, about 45 minutes before you want to be asleep, that can be very, very beneficial. Tryptophan is, on the other hand, something that people can use more regularly. Now, it is a serotonergic herb, so it's going to enhance those serotonin levels, which is kind of involved with melatonin secretion in the body without getting too complicated about it. But the reason I bring that up is because if you are taking antidepressants or medications for ADHD, you probably want to talk to your doctor before adding in a supplement like tryptophan, because it could potentially impact some of those medications, or it might make you actually feel more stimulated in the evening. So I try not to take those. I do take melatonin when I'm traveling to a different time zone. Thankfully, I don't do shift work anymore, so I don't have to worry about that. But I take passion flower most evenings. Motherwort is another herb that can really help facilitate sleep. And I do drink bedtime teas with chamomile and stuff like that in them. So that definitely can be helpful as far as supplements and things go.
And how do you feel about alarm clocks and waking up? I think we should end by this logical order, right? Because now we have to wake up as well. How is that affecting sleep, or is it at all?
You know what? This is such a fascinating area of research that is really being delved into more so now than ever before, because we have the technology to manipulate how we wake up, right? And so before, it just used to be like that, the noise that woke us up. There's actually research that demonstrates that waking up to a startling noise like that is much more jarring. And really, I think there's probably I have to go back and read the research, but I believe it has to do with cortisol release or that adrenaline rush first thing in the morning. What they found to be more beneficial is to actually wake up to a tone that starts very, very quietly and then slowly gets louder and louder. So first of all, I am a huge believer in alarm clocks in general. I already mentioned I don't sleep with my phone in the bedroom. I know a lot of people say to me, but Marie, I use my phone as an alarm clock. And I say, well, guess what? They actually make alarm clocks. You can buy this thing. It's called an alarm clock, and it goes beside your bed. The technology now is outstanding because you can actually dim the light on your clock so that it goes away, so that there's no light emitting into your eyes. There's nothing telling you you've been in bed for, however long and you're still awake. So buy an alarm clock. You can set it. My alarm clock, and I must have bought this, 5 years ago at least. Even back then, it has a chime when it wakes me up that starts super quiet and then just slowly gets louder and louder. And then you can even buy alarm clocks that have a little light that comes on, just like the natural sun rising. And you can even just wake up to the light and it doesn't even play anything. So as naturally as you can wake up, the better. And there is also some research to really indicate for all the snoozers out there, people who hit the snooze button, this is not good for you. So the reason for that is because basically what you're doing is you're waking up. So you've already interrupted your sleep. Then you hit the snooze and you fall back asleep, but you're only getting into that very light stage of sleep because you're only snoozing for 10 minutes, right? So you've now interrupted your most beneficial part of your sleep, which is your REM or your deep sleep, just to have a bit of light sleep. So if you can get out of the habit of snoozing, if you really don't need to be out of bed till 7:30, set your alarm at 7:30 or 7:25 and force yourself to get up. But know that those last 20 minutes that you would have spent snoozing, you're actually getting an amazing restorative, deep or REM sleep that is going to benefit you way more than that, those 10-minute chunks of snooze time.
Yeah. So I was a snoozer, and I did that for like 3, 4, maybe 5 times before I got up. Wow. And I had to do complete rearrange that. Yeah. So what I do instead now is I get up first time now, I guess. But I do some meditation instead. So I'm not up and doing stuff the second I wake up. I'm just crawling out of bed and into a chair, and I have my headphones there and my phone is ready, and I just put them in and I'll sit there for 15 minutes, right? Yeah. So for me anyway, it's more beneficial to wake up like that, because I'm more present and I get my meditation routine in, and I get a more beneficial snooze time, right?
Oh, I love that. I think that's perfect. I think that's a beautiful way to make use of that time. If you are a person who doesn't spring out of bed and, needs to kind of slowly ease into life, even getting up and, and just like flipping open a book and reading a book a little bit, or, opening a journal and just writing a few things down, just giving yourself a little bit of time to ease into your day, it just sets the tone for your day. But yeah, you put it perfectly. That snooze time, it's a waste of time. You may as well be doing another activity or sleeping longer and getting that really beneficial sleep time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a single parent as well, and I have all balls in the air all the time, and I have to arrange play dates, and I have to pack lunch, and I have to do a ton of stuff. Yeah. And I find that if I use like just 10 minutes before the kids wake up, just quiet time, meditation, and my morning coffee, and don't have to do too much else. I remember things. Oh yeah, I have to pack that. He needs shorts today, and I have to. I'm a half a step in front instead of
yes. Yeah. Well, I think probably, you already know the benefits of meditation, but you're probably just much more present. You're really in the moment, and you're really, when those thoughts come up, you're like, yes, I need to do that. And I'm going to go do that right now. Like, you're just, I can only imagine. And it's, rare that I will ever hit the snooze button. But when I do, it's just, I feel like I'm chasing my tail the whole day, because now I'm just behind. Everything's behind. I'm running, and there's not even any time to be thinking, because I'm already behind. So I'm already thinking about the next thing. So yeah, I'm glad you've been able to shift that habit.
But the reason I'm talking about myself now is because it's again my agenda, because it's really ties into my sleep routine. So knowing that I have the time to myself, and knowing that I have that routine, I'm actually looking forward to it. Mm-hmm. So getting into bed the night before is easier, because I know I have the time and I'm looking forward to it, and the morning is not damn, that's a stupid alarm clock again, and then I'm up and running, right? So the evenings get better with a morning routine. I don't have no clue if that is even relevant for what you were going to say, but that was a point I needed to put in there.
I love it. Gosh, thank you so much for sharing that. I think that that's a beautiful way to look at it. When you've got a morning routine that is just for you, especially for those of us who are parents, and especially doing it alone, there is so little time for ourselves. So the fact that you've carved out that time, and you've got that to look forward to, I think it's perfect. And I don't think I ever really thought about it as intentionally, but for me, absolutely. I welcome the time when I wake up and I can, putter around and do all the things that I do before my daughter wakes up, or before I have to wake her up. It's a really special time. So, yeah.
Good. And this sleep thing is just a small corner in self-care and mental health. And you talk about all things mental health and self-care in your podcast, and you write about it on your website as well. And I know because you're just launching now, I saw that on Instagram the other day, that you're launching a new program on self-care as well, aren't you?
Yeah, so this new program, it is really designed for leaders in veterinary settings. So anybody who is working with a team. And we talk about all things basically related to the well-being of the team from the leader's perspective. So how are we communicating, or how is our team communicating? How are we helping our team to resolve conflict? You know, there's a lot of research that's demonstrating that a lot of burnout in the veterinary field is the result of workplace toxicity or unresolved conflict. So most of us veterinarians, you know, we really shy away from conflict. So how can we handle that more productively? How can we openly talk about mental health and self-care in the workplace? How can we promote self-care amongst our team members? What can we do to resolve workplace toxicity and foster psychological safety in the workplace? So this is a really great program. It's a month-long program that's very immersive, meaning there's going to be a lot of work for you to do during the program, but you also get a lot out of it that you can use for yourself, that you can share with your team, and that is really going to serve you for the rest of your career. So it's a month-long program running in November, and it also qualifies for 8 hours of RACE credit if you work somewhere that recognizes RACE for your continuing professional development. And yeah, I've got a few spots left. So if people are interested, they can visit my website to find out more. And yeah, otherwise I've got other programs running all the time. And you mentioned my podcast, and I am just always so delighted to connect with people, you know, whether it be via social media or email. So please always feel welcome to reach out or listen to my resources and share them with people who you think would also benefit.
So I will definitely make sure to add a link for the show notes for this episode. Yeah, your name is not too difficult, but there wouldn't be any Danes who could actually spell it, and the other way around. I wouldn't expect you to spell my last name anyway. So
yeah, there you
go. I will need to put a link in there, but people can find it there, and I think definitely they should take a look whether they are for the program or not. There's actually good information to get there.
Oh, thank you, sir. And I appreciate that.
So thank you very much, Marie. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your input.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Husk, at du kan finde links og noter til dagens afsnit på SIVP.dk og så episodens nummer, for eksempel SIVP.dk/1. Og føler du et behov for at udvide dine faglige færdigheder, uden at skulle tage en hel dag væk fra familien og fra klinikken, så har jeg nogle online kurser til dig. Du har måske hørt mig sige det før, men du kan få en hel måneds gratis adgang. Og det kan du få med en speciel kode, som jeg ikke deler noget andet sted end her i podcasten. Og det er fordi, at dig, der lytter til podcast, du er noget helt særligt. På SIVP.dk/XYZ får du 4 ugers gratis adgang til kurserne og protokollerne på hjemmesiden. Alle kurserne har specifikke læringsmål, så du ved præcist, hvad du får ud af den tid, du investerer i det. Du kan for eksempel lære at lave en regelret neurologisk undersøgelse og bruge det allerede næste gang, du er på klinikken. Du kan også lære at tolke blodprøver, og du kan lære at lave et godt finlåsaspirat og tolke det sikkert. Der er meget mere, men kig over på SIVP.dk/XYZ og tilmeld dig den gratis adgang, så kan du se, hvad du kan lære og bruge allerede næste gang, du er på klinikken. Udover alt det, så får du også adgang til et lukket online forum, hvor du trygt og sikkert kan dele alle dine i gåseøjne dumme spørgsmål. Dem er der selvfølgelig ikke nogen af. Men vi er sammen om at lære. Du skal ikke lære alene. Vi er sammen om at blive bedre. Og så ved jeg godt, at der er nogen, der er bekymret for at tilmelde sig et medlemskab. De er måske bange for ikke at få det brugt. Og jeg ved godt, at du som lytter til det her, jo går op i din faglige udvikling, for ellers havde du jo ikke lyttet til podcast. Men skulle du nu alligevel være bekymret for at glemme at melde dig fra, når din gratis måned udløber, så skriv lige til mig. Jeg har nemlig resultatgaranti, og det betyder, at hvis ikke du ser resultater i din hverdag, så skal du selvfølgelig ikke betale for noget for at have været på kursus hos mig. Se på SIVP.dk/XYZ for at tilmelde dig en gratis måned med det samme. Vi ses!